Marvin Minsky, the originator of artificial neural networks and the co-founder of the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT, has said, "Ordinary citizens wouldn't know what to do with eternal life. The masses don't have any clear-cut goals or purpose." No matter how you look at it, the singularity is being promised as the great solution to our 21st century global problems. Thanks to such early work as the Human Genome Project, we will be able to decode DNA itself. Through the use of applied genetics, science will be able to improve the human race. What most people don't realize is that this concept is not new. It is, in fact, a repackaging of what was once called eugenics.
Back. We have our wonderful guest Jennifer back with us. Surprise, surprise. And she doesn't know much about transhumanism either, so we're all kind of getting a crash course in understanding. One parallel that I can draw is kind of like in today's world is like the city folks to the Quakers. You know, they don't use gas engines or the Amish, you know, where they don't have electricity or telephones, and you know, we embrace all this stuff like it's no big deal. And you know, I guess the transhuman movement is also reminds me of like Terminator and artificial intelligence. Any questions or comments?
Again, creepy.
Creepy.
I mean, you can see the practical applications of it, you know, such as an amputee getting, you know, a mechanical prosthetic arm. In that sort of situation, it would be good technology. But there is a lot of room, just like with anything else, for it to be used for not so noble purposes and just really, really bad things.
Right. I mean, I guess you could get the new Nintendo Wii chip implanted in your brain, so you never need a controller again. That way you could drive your car just in your sleep or unconsciously.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
scary.
Yeah, especially with the way I drive. I don't know. I guess we can move on to the next clip. Let's see the third clip, Sam.
The term eugenics means good genes, or good origin. It was coined in 1883 by British scientist Sir Francis Galton. He defined eugenics as a moral philosophy to improve humanity by encouraging the best and brightest to breed. Galton was the half-cousin of Sir Charles Darwin, the famous originator of the theory of evolution, which also would come to be known as Darwinism. The three main tenets of Darwinism are the evolutionary transformation from one species into others, natural selection is the cause of divergence in species, the drive behind evolution is the sexual reproductive instinct, and that life is a constant struggle for survival. Galton actually used the theory of evolution to substantiate his new science of eugenics. In his book, Studies on Hereditary Genius, he attempted to prove that the aristocratic families of the British Empire were in fact a superior race. The fact that in the struggle for life, they had made it to the very top of society proved that they were the best that humanity had to offer. It is important to note that Darwin's famous Origin of Species is actually subtitled Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. Not surprisingly, the Royal Society, a scientific institution dedicated to the improvement of natural knowledge, picked up on these new ideas and promoted Darwin heavily. Being a creation of the British monarchy, the Royal Society was obviously in favor of promoting the idea of the genetic superiority of the royal family. Science itself was being positioned to replace the old religious appeal of the divine right of kings to rule over the inferior masses. Darwin himself stated, Elite status is prima facie evidence of evolutionary superiority. Through scientism, science as religion, Darwinism could in fact bring about social change. Social Darwinism would manifest itself as eugenics. To eugenicists, the masses were cattle, with Galton calling eugenics the science of improving the stock. The rise of scientism spawned the widespread proliferation of eugenics as it reached American shores at the turn of the century. The Eugenics Record Office in Cold Springs Harbor, New York, went to work, amassing hundreds of thousands of family pedigrees for genetic research. They also lobbied for state sterilization acts and other eugenic legislation. In 1899, Henry Clay Sharp, a prison physician, began sterilizing degenerate prisoners, and later in 1907, he was a key advocate for a law in Indiana which was passed, mandating the compulsory sterilization of degenerates throughout the state. In 1921, the American Eugenics Society was formed and began propaganda campaigns, which included the promotion of eugenics in churches, schools, and state fair exhibitions. Funding for American eugenics came from the Carnegie, Harriman, and Rockefeller families, among others. Eugenics was being accepted as a genuine form of science. Social Darwinism made strong advances toward a world in which scientism would fulfill Galton's dream of having eugenics be the religion of the future. But a major setback occurred at the end of World War II. It was discovered that American eugenics had been a major influence on Hitler's final solution. In 1934, Rudolf Hess had stated that National Socialism is nothing but applied biology. Hitler had only wanted to preserve the best German stocks and elevate them to a dominant position within society. It was at this point in eugenics history that a crucial move had to be made in order to hide eugenics from the now aware masses of humanity. Prominent eugenicist Julian Huxley stepped up and offered a solution. He simply invented a new word to replace eugenics, that term being transhumanism, which he defined as a need for mankind to realize the importance of steering the direction of its own evolution. Yes, eugenics was one of the original aspects of transhumanism, and it is no surprise, as Julian was the grandson of Thomas Henry Huxley, who had been a president of the Royal Society and one of the most well-known advocates of Darwinism in its early days. Julian, being properly raised, was educated at Oxford, his specialty being evolutionary biology. He went on to many high-level positions, which included gene pool. Julian or hospital treatment, lest the removal of the last check on natural selection should make it too easy for children to be produced or to survive. Long unemployment should be a ground for sterilization. Transhumanism was born out of humanism, which is yet another form of scientism, characterized by its faith in the power of human beings to create their own future. Yet another clever rationalization for eugenics as the creative force behind man-made evolution. No one doubts the wisdom of managing the germplasm of agricultural stocks, so why not apply the same concept to human stocks? Among Huxley's many distinguished positions, one which stands out was that of being the first ever Director General of UNESCO. the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. The job of the organization being to bring culture to the Third World. Culture being the worldwide spread of eugenic philosophy. It will be important for UNESCO to see that the eugenic problem is examined with the greatest care, and that the public mind is informed of the issues at stake, so that much that now is unthinkable may at least become thinkable.
Welcome back. We have now discovered that transhumanism is just a new term for a repackaging of eugenics. I think the other couple issues that come into along lines with that is population control, the environmental movement. Some of the third world countries, Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Society Foundation wants to vaccinate tons and tons of people. And as I was researching this topic, I discovered that they had actually, the Rockefellers had funded heavily in a tetanus shot that they give to young women when they're pregnant and in Africa, and they won't give them a identity card for their kids if they don't get the shot, and it then causes major problems with fertility and whatnot. So they're using these transhuman eugenics technologies currently today in the world. You guys have anything?
Like I said before, creepy stuff and, kind of scary stuff, actually. But, I mean, I guess the old adage applies here. As much as things change, they always stay the same. The only difference here is, just like every other time in history, the technology just keeps getting better and better. And like I said before, it has its good sides, but it also has its its downsides too, so, I mean, it is what it is, I suppose.
I was just thinking about that theory and how it fits into our healthcare bill, and I was actually reminiscing on 2 summers ago. I actually lost some friends on Facebook over this. But if you look at these eugenists and elitists, I think the key thing is one of the things that was actually mentioned in that last part before the clip cut out is that in order for natural selection to run its natural course, they shall have no access to hospital care or relief. And actually, if you look at the healthcare bill, you actually read through it, which I actually did, all 1,000-some pages or whatever it was that it was. You actually look at it, and some of that language is ambiguous, but they are calling for death panels, and Bill Gates has even come out and said that. And actually, Lindsey Williams, who actually has connections with the elitist, talked to an elitist friend of his who even admitted this bill was not a health care bill, this was a health control bill. And so I was just thinking about all of that and how it fits into our current legislation that we're having coming down the pike.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's like a slow creeping, almost like a
creeping death, creeping tyranny.
Yeah, I mean, it's incrementalism, and